John chapter 18. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples over the brook Cedron, where there was a garden, into which he entered along with his disciples. And Judas also, which betrayed him, knew the place, for Jesus often resorted there with his disciples. Judas then, having received a band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, came there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that would come on him, went out, and said to them, Whom do you seek? They answered him, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus said to them, I am he. And Judas also, which betrayed him, stood there with them. As soon as he had said to them, I am he, they went backward, and fell to the ground. Then he asked them again, Whom do you seek? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus answered, I have told you that I am he. If therefore you seek me, let these go their way, that the saying might be fulfilled which he spoke. Of them which you gave me, I have lost none. Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Then Jesus said to Peter, Put up your sword into the sheath. The cup which my Father has given me, shall I not drink it? Then the band and the captain and officers of the Jews took Jesus and bound him, and led him away to Annas first, for he was father-in-law to Caiaphas, who was the high priest that same year. Now Caiaphas was he which gave counsel to the Jews, that it was expedient that one man should die for the people. And Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. That disciple was known to the high priest, and went in with Jesus into the palace of the high priest. But Peter stood at the door yet. Then that other disciple went out, which was known to the high priest, and spoke to her that kept the door, and brought in Peter. Then the damsel said that kept the door to Peter, Are not you also one of this man's disciples? He said, I am not. And the servants and officers stood there, who had made a fire of coals, for it was cold. And they warmed themselves, and Peter stood with them, and warmed himself. The high priest then asked Jesus of his disciples and of his doctrine. Jesus answered him, I spoke openly to the world. I always taught in the synagogue, and in the temple, where the Jews resort. And in secret have I said nothing. Why do you ask me? Ask them which heard me, what I have said to them. Behold, they know what I said. And when he had spoken this, one of the officers which stood by struck Jesus with the palm of his hand, saying, You answered the high priest like that? Jesus answered him, If I have spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. But if well, why do you strike me? Now Annas had sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. And Simon Peter stood and warmed himself. They said therefore to him, Are not you also one of his disciples? He denied it, and said, I am not. One of the servants of the high priest, being his relative whose ear Peter cut off, said, Did not I see you in the garden with him? Peter then denied again, and immediately the cock crowed. Then they led Jesus from Caiaphas to the hall of judgment, and it was early. And they themselves went not into the judgment hall, lest they should be defiled, but that they might eat the Passover. Pilate then went out to them, and said, What accusation do you bring against this man? They answered and said to him, If he were not a malefactor, we would not have delivered him up to you. Then Pilate said to them, You take him and judge him according to your law. The Jews therefore said to him, It is not lawful for us to put any man to death, that the saying of Jesus might be fulfilled, which he spoke, signifying what death he should die. Then Pilate entered into the judgment hall again, and called Jesus, and said to him, Are you the king of the Jews? Jesus answered him, Do you say this thing of yourself, or did others tell it to you of me? Pilate answered, Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now my kingdom is not from here." Pilate therefore said to him, "Are you a king then?" Jesus answered, "You do say that I am a king. To this end I was born, and for this cause I came into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth. Every one that is of the truth hears my voice." Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" And when he had said this, he went out again to the Jews, and said to them, "I find in him no fault at all. But you have a custom that I should release to you one at the Passover. Will you therefore that I release to you the King of the Jews?" Then they all cried again, saying, "Not this man, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was a robber.